2.
Welcome back. You're listening to Fresh Air Community Radio, 90.3 FM in Minneapolis. This is Joe Madrid with High Life Consulting, and today we're talking with 5 amazing women. I have Natalie Patera, Sarah Wellington, Laura Mon Ginsberg, Mary Kay Gilbert, and Maren Schroeder, and we're talking about women in cannabis and how we're leading the way. So before break, we were talking a little bit about the different pieces of legislation that are out there now. With recreational as well as medical programs. And now I'd like to talk a little bit about hemp. So I know there's a lot of confusion even with the definition of cannabis, hemp, marijuana. People like to get that all mixed up and confused. Sarah, could you kind of explain that? I know you're kind of our hemp expert.
Sure. Hemp is defined as having a THC level of zero point 0.3 or below, and in the industrial hemp program in Minnesota is designed to grow grain fiber and for novel cannabinoids such as CBD. And people get those confused. Cannabis for adult use is generally comes in between 10% and up to now 33% THC. So when you're looking at hemp crop even up to 3 to 5%, that is what we would call ditchweed back in the day. You're not going to get high off 5% hemp. You're just not, okay?
Well, it's over 21% THC.
Yeah, it's like kombucha compared to Everclear.
Yeah.
Really, when you make if you want to make a comparison, that's why hemp falls into this really stigmatized category for farmers who can't get bank accounts opened, and that creates a real barrier when it became a legal agricultural product. But now they can't get banking, they can't get farm loans, they can't get crop insurance. If they use their combine on their corn and their grain, they may lose the loan that they have on that combine.
That's crazy.
It's incredibly burdensome to farmers, and it keeps farmers from entering this agricultural market that has really great potential for a sustainable future in the Midwest. We were once a leader in hemp production, and we can do it again, but we're lacking infrastructure with both machinery, knowledge, and protection, legal protection and banking protection. All of that needs to be incorporated with industrial hemp. And that's how hemp and cannabis really differ. Marijuana is a term that they all just come from, but hemp is industrial hemp is truly an industrial product, from making hempcrete to nanotechnology to there's auto companies
Oils.
in Germany using it for car parts already. It's out there. We are way behind, and our farmers need a third crop or maybe a real crop to bring their farms back, and we can do it here.
I agree. Phytoremediation. I mean, there's so many uses, and it's just a shame that Minnesota, the farmland of the Midwest, we're backyard to green giant here, and yet we're so behind on all of this. And so what are we doing down at the Capitol now, or what are some of the issues you see that we're facing with him?
Today at the Agricultural Finance Committee meeting, we spoke and testified in support of Senator Vang's bill creating definitions that for the hemp bill that we don't have. Like producer did not have a definition, and all bills should have definitions for each part. So we spoke in support of that. We asked for more research dollars to be put into infrastructure. Hemp hives, where there's large producers and growers of fiber and grain, really getting this into a value-added market so we can put Minnesota grown on things from pet food and treats to protein fiber that's way better for a human than soy or whey-based protein. And it's endless uses, can all be done here. We have students that need jobs. We have people with felony backgrounds who can do soil supplements. Hemp is incredibly sustainable to grow and decompose. So I just feel like we need to make that known, and we're working with the U of M to connect all of the fragmented networks.
Nice.
And that is one part that's missing in the hemp world, is that everyone has kind of their little project that's working really well for their 5 people or 2 people, and as an association, we try to bring all of those smaller groups together to pool resources, ideas, and so we're not doing everything over and over again. That's really the point of founding the association and creating it as a 501c3, so that it's education, and education should be available and based on science. Science matters.
Right.
There's a lot of misinformation, and farmers need to know the right information to make the right decisions for their farms.
And was something happening down at the Capitol today?
There was a hemp rally day down at the Capitol. There's a lot of events coming up at the Capitol around hemp and adult use cannabis, as well as the bills that Maren spoke about.
Okay. So, we're talking about all this regulation and compliance, and all of this legislation has to be very detailed in what that program will look like, what the rules and regulations will look like, and how we're going to roll this out. But I know that even now, before we have adult consumption recreational program here in Minnesota, we've been dealing with CBD products and in labeling CBD products, and they've been kind of in the gray market before January of this year. So Natalie, I know that you're a businesswoman. You have your line of high-end CBD products. What's it been like for you up to this point, just trying to run your business with your CBD products?
And I'm not allowed to curse.
You're not allowed to curse, no.
Well, it's incredibly daunting, actually. Right after I bought my license to grow for this year, I got a letter in the mail that said that the regulations that were currently in law will more than likely change before we harvest next year. And so I'm like, okay, well, I just gave you like almost $1,000 so that I can process and grow.
Right.
And now I'm only going to grow one small greenhouse because I don't want to put all that energy into a product that I might have to burn down in September.
Right, that uncertainty. I don't know. I mean, that's really hard for a small business person to predict.
Yeah, it's hard. So until they figure it out for sure, and it's not going to change halfway through the season, I'm just keeping it small. And 2021, I probably won't grow unless it's legalized, and then things will just be totally different.
And I know you and I have talked offline before about how people think it's so easy to just jump into the industry and to, I think I'm going to wake up tomorrow and I'm going to be a hemp farmer and I'm going to make some CBD tincture, and then when it's legal, I'm going to get a giant grow and be vertically integrated and have a retail shop. And I get calls too in my business with people that have zero capital that think it's easy. So what would you tell those folks?
Start really small. Don't invest a lot of money. Who knows where this is going? They might shut us all down.
Yeah, and I like to plug my ears when people say that, like, oh, it could all come to an end. I think that there's power in positive thinking sometimes, and I remain positive that it's not if but when here in Minnesota.
It's definitely a when.
Yeah.
I mean, it has to be ridiculous.
Right. So I want to switch gears for a minute, and I want to talk to Mary Kay, our nurse, a little bit about the research and medical uses of this plant, because I think that what I hear a lot in pushback is, oh, they shouldn't legalize, it's a gateway drug. Oh, they shouldn't legalize, there's no real research. The excuses just keep coming. So what would you tell not only the regular folks out there, but also other clinicians about your knowledge on this plant and what it can do and what it can't do?
Yeah. Well, the fact of the matter is that patients are choosing an alternative to some of their treatments, and they're looking for guidance obviously from their physicians. And as nurses, physicians, pharmacists, we didn't receive this education in our as a part of, we learned about the 11 human body systems. We didn't know about the endocannabinoid system.
So what is the endocannabinoid system? Can you talk just briefly, like a high level?
Yeah. So we all mammals have and I'll refer to it as the ECS, as the acronym. It's the largest receptor within our body. It's a signaling system within our body, responsible for the homeostasis of multiple various different organs. And we're
Homeostasis meaning balance. Yes.
exactly
Okay.
right, to bring balance. So within these receptors within our bodies, we have our own endocannabinoids, and many times there are certain conditions that have deficiencies within that. There comes cannabis to the table to help boost that. We need more research. There's a lot of research being done, but it's not integrating necessarily within the mainstream medical system.
Okay, yeah, and I know that most research that happens with pharmaceuticals is federally funded, and due to cannabis being Schedule 1, we can't do any research on it, and the little bit of research that is happening at the federal level is with, from what I've heard, subpar product. So it's not the same product that people are actually able to grow or to purchase. There's a lot of research coming out of Israel. There's a lot of research coming out of Europe and Spain. I know that there are some human studies that have been approved on dementia and ovarian cancer and on epilepsy out in Colorado with a company called MedFarm. So I think that it's slow going. But what would you tell clinicians? So say you're talking to a doctor and they're you want to let them know that you think that this is a good thing. What would you tell them?
I think it's really important for clinicians to put their bias aside and be open to exploring this. And it may not go down the traditional path that we look to for clinical trials and validated research at the FDA level for a plant-based product. But I think it all comes down to putting our bias aside and being open to doing what's right. That's patient focused.
Right. It's patient focus is the key words there, and I think that just in many of the systems, the patients get lost. Right. The people that are the most disenfranchised get looked over, and that with cannabis and with the unequal incarceration that's happened with people of color in this country that Laura was talking about, all of those that came before us that have paved the way to get where we are now. We really need to consider those folks as we implement, and I know that a couple of you are working on that. Sarah, I wanted to ask you what your thoughts are on that.
That's an absolute imperative. We put thousands and thousands and thousands of people in life sentences and destroyed communities and families for generations in the war on drugs that we all see now as an absolute disaster. And if you haven't read Johann Hari, Chasing the Scream, you must read that book to understand what we have done to people. And reparations through the cannabis legislation for adult use, for hemp businesses, for whatever it needs to be done. I don't know all the ideas, but there's enough people that have ideas to make this happen. It's one of the only ways that we can make it better for these communities that lost resources when the men were all imprisoned and the women were raising the children alone. And then when they did the census, they counted all those men as living in these rural counties, and the money was lost to Ramsey and Hennepin County. This is reparations for that, by making businesses available to those people with those felonies on their backgrounds, and they need to come off. That we need to put down the barriers. That's to housing and credit, jobs. It's endless once you have a felony on your background, and cannabis-related felonies need to be expunged immediately with whatever kind of legislation goes through. It's an imperative. The social justice aspect, without reading that book, I think it's the most concise and best written history of the damage of the war on drugs. And reparations through this has to be a part of any legislation. And if we can't do it that way, then we employ people in ancillary businesses where they don't touch the plant until their felonies are off their records. There's a way around it, and till they're expunged, or we still put people back to work.
And
we build families back together. We bring community and economic wealth to all communities at all levels. This damaged everybody.
Yeah, and most states that have legal adult recreational programs have passed expungement legislation. So we're going to take another PSA break here. We're talking with women leaders in cannabis here in Minnesota for International Women's Day on Fresh Air Community Radio 90.3 FM. Thanks for listening.